Hi, everyone. This is Coach DeMarco here with another Get Better Basketball Live. Today, I am here with Coach Ben Murphy, who's going to share with us part 2 of the small-sided games talk. Coach Murphy has coached at numerous different levels, all the way up to the varsity basketball level. Now he is a middle school coach in Shakopee Valley, Maine. Coach Murphy, how are you doing today?
Doing really good. Weather's nice. We're winding down our 4th quarter of education, but happy to talk basketball.
Yeah, really happy to have you here. I really liked part 1 of your discussion. Got a lot of hits on my new YouTube channel. A lot of coaches really liking the small-sided games discussion. So I appreciate you taking time to share with us today. And I really like the SSG. You're going to share Bulls in the Ring. I think it's a great opportunity for coaches to work on a lot of different skills. And you're even going to take us through the progression today. So why don't you jump right in and take us through Bulls in the Ring, small-sided game.
Sure. Thank you. So Bulls in the Ring, I got to apologize right off the bat. I don't remember who I got it from. I steal so many things from so many places that I think it was John Leonzo, but I'm not sure. Either way, we'll kind of hop into it here, and we'll look at what Bulls in the Ring kind of gets after. It was basically a goal to replace the basic layup line. So we wanted our kids finishing against some defense, and if you can kind of see it, it's called Bulls in the Ring because you put a group of defenders in the middle in center circle. Then you have ball handlers on each opposite corner of the full court. So it's a full court drill. And then you have a cone in the middle where you can adjust it. So the way it starts out, or the basic premise of it, is that dribbler can take off. We want him to get up to pretty high speed by the time he hits half court. And then the defender can take off as soon as he reaches half court. And then the idea there is they try to kind of cut him off or just kind of have a contested finish of some sort. And so, it just gets guys used to finishing with the player around them rather than just taking your standard layup line, uncontested, basic layup. So it gets guys to focus on their finishing a little bit better. One of the things we start to do once we get used to the drill is we really, to make it real easy, we'll actually drag the cone kind of way forward. And so the defense is like quite a bit behind. And then we'll progressively just walk the cones back a little bit into where the offense has a much smaller advantage. We can play this a number of different ways. The first way we play it is just kind of individually. Guys are just working on their finishing. There's not really kind of a competitive element to it. They're just kind of working on kind of getting the ball in the rim with the defender around them. As we get into it, like I coach 7th and 8th grade, and we have combined practices. So if you can picture this drill with about 25 different kids on the court, that's kind of what it looks like. It's a little bit chaotic. So what we would do to make it a little competitive is we would put one team of like 7th graders in the middle playing defense, 8th graders on the dribble. And then what we ran into is because the points mattered and the scores mattered, guys started fouling each other because you think about it in a game, like when you're young, you probably think, hey, man, if I'm trailing the ball, that's like the only chance I've got to stop it. And so we really had to start counting those fouls as scores and also teach guys like how to defend without fouling. Even when you're trailing, there's a lot you can do to disrupt the guy or make him feel nervous or make him kind of just edgy and blow that layup, even if you're not, quote unquote, in front of him playing defense. And so we kind of teach around that and kind of de-emphasize the idea of just whacking a guy if you're trailing him, because that's certainly not the type of defense that we want to teach. And guys got used to that. And this became one of their favorite drills. Like kids would ask to play Bulls in the Ring all the time. I had a couple kids, like if we weren't playing Bulls in the Ring in the first, like that'd be the first thing they asked when they got in the gym. And if we weren't, like their whole attitude was like, oh, geez, like I wanted to play Bulls in the Ring today. So they just got used to it. They liked it. Of course, they were like the fastest kids on the team. So of course they like to play a game that emphasizes some speed.
Coach, just two clarifying questions.
Sure.
So one is when you do this drill, typically you'd have a group of players in the middle representing one team, like a blue team, and then you'd have players on offense like a white team, and they would flip-flop, or is it individual,
you could do it
or could it be either?
So the two ways we did it was the way you just mentioned, kind of having blues and whites on separate teams, and you just always go back to play defense or always be the ball handler. The way we actually introduce it, though, is more of an individual thing. So if you score, you keep it. And so you just like, if I'm this player, black number 1 here, if I finish on this end, I'll keep the ball and I'll get in the back of this line here, and that guy's got to go back and play some more defense before he gets to play offense. So I kind of like that part about it. You do have to get a stop to play offense, which I like. And then we just introduce the team aspect of it later once they get the hang of the basic idea of it. And again, that brings out kind of a different element.
I love that individual aspect, having to get a stop and then you get to go on offense. And if you score, you get to stay on. I think that adds to the competitive nature of the drill. So that's a great way to do it. And go ahead, Coach.
No, I was just going to say, guys will do some creative things to score, man. They don't really give up on those possessions very easily. Even when you think that they're dead, they're gonna kind of fake until they can get some sort of shot off because they want to play offense again. Nobody wants to go back to that middle, like, ever.
Yeah, I can imagine. So just one other question on the cone and the setup. You mentioned you can adjust the cone to change sort of the advantage. So what I'm envisioning is that defender is going to start equivalent to that cone depending on where it's located, and that's
the cone basically sets up when the defender can take off.
Okay.
So all the defender has to do is be within that circle, and if guys are smart, they'll actually cheat it to the bottom of the circle so they, have that 3 or 4 feet past half court to kind of react. But like, the further you slide up the cone, the longer that he has to wait. So he's either taken off, a few steps behind him and changes the defensive angle that he's recovering towards. It's so basically he's got to wait till the offensive player passes that cone. And obviously the further up you put the cone, the less chance the defender has to really make an impact on the play. When you drag the cone back, kind of like short of half court, unless you're a really fast player, the defender's probably going to get in front of you and take a decent angle. Then you got to work on kind of maybe a crossover and a finish, maybe a finish on the opposite side. Just it adds some levels of difficulty without really changing much. I mean, you move a cone 3 or 4 feet, and that's going to really change the offensive advantage or lack of advantage. And so that's how we work it. We do want to make it easy at the start because a lot of our guys are pretty young players just learning the game. And so we don't want to like be putting a defender right on them right to start, but we do want to have them really not just kind of walking through layup lines either. So we thought this was a nice happy medium. And again, kids love it. They really like this game.
I think too, like just in how you adjust the cone, you're adjusting sort of the experience that player is having. Like you said, if the defender is chasing a little bit more, for younger players, that simulates that fast break opportunity. And we know especially at the middle school level, how many times kids come down and have a fast break with a defender chasing them. They still miss the shot, or it could be that they're pretty equal to them. And like you said, they might have to cross over and do different things to finish. So that's great. And are there some tweaks or adjustments that you do to this? Other things that you do?
Sure. Yeah. Yep. So as we get the hang of it, there's a number of things you can do. To be honest, we only did this next one in practice that I'm about to show you just because it made sense for our team. But I'll go through a few different options where you can add a player on the offensive end and a defender on the offensive end to essentially make it a 2-on-2 game rather than a 1-on-1 game. So in this one, you'll see if we were doing this accurately, this cone would probably actually be slid back a little bit so that you would simulate the fact that you're probably not going to have a huge offensive advantage when you get down here. So the first thing we did, or the adjustment we made, is we just put a guy spotted up in the corner because one of our offensive rules, we like to send a guy early on the break and get him spotted up the corner if we can. We'll just put a defender on there. So those guys are just basically standing there waiting. And the offense, the drill is still the same. You attack, the defender gets on defense, tries to cut you off. And rule is like, look, you're still trying to score. You're still trying to score it yourself. That's your first option. And you're kicking it to the corner only if you have to. So it adds an element of decision-making. It's a nice way to do it with some speed too. Like, guys are usually coming into this 3-point, driving through the 3-point line arc fairly quickly. And so it simulates a game and it allows them to make a decision that happens quite a bit within the game.
I like too about this is you can teach that defender, what we would do is teach them to stunt at the player and try to force them to pass out and then get the steal. So you have an opportunity to teach that. And then also, I'm thinking that player, if as they come through, might be able to cross and get to the other side of the paint and finish. So now you're kind of advancing it to teach players different ways to finish in transition, but also there's a decision-making component, another decision-making component in there. So that's
Yeah.
really cool way to advance it.
Yeah, and I the other thing I like about this, probably should have mentioned it, is that you can modify it depending on what your defensive philosophy is. And so I'm assuming on the break, most teams are going to want to send a guy sideline, and so you want to make sure like to see if your guys are taking a proper angle to shove them to the sideline or bump them to the sideline, but not let them attack middle. And also like your help side rules might be different for this guy in the corner, and so you can modify that for yourself. So it's just things you can change depending on your team. But I think, it's never a bad thing to be able to simulate this, because every team wants to drive and score. Every team, no matter what offensive system you get, driving and scoring and making that decision to either score or pass, that happens 100 times a game. The other thing I like too is that when we added this guy here, it was an element that we try to reinforce in the half court, which is to, shoot or drive immediately. And then there's probably not an obvious, you wouldn't be able to kick it right back to the player that gave it to you right away. So that's kind of what we want. We want a guy to think score first and then drive and then maybe pass third. It also teaches once he does kick it, like, where the heck do I go to give my guy enough room to score here. So that was just stuff that I didn't even think of when we first did it, but I saw it happening. And so guys would kind of make that pass and then stand there. Like a younger player would kick it out to their teammate, and the teammate wouldn't shoot, but they also didn't have anywhere to go because you're standing right there. So I had to remind our guys, once you make that pass, you got to get out of there somewhere, anywhere besides standing there would be good. You can even run in and replace the guy so he drives right over top of you, but you can't just stay there. But younger guys, they just pass and kind of think that the play is over. And so that was another helpful thing to teach them.
Just a question for you, Coach, in terms of your philosophy in these types of drills. I see a couple of different opportunities. I might, as a varsity coach, I might have myself and my assistants sort of coaching players up on the fly, and as they make decisions, maybe asking them questions like, hey, what could you have done differently there? What did you see? There's also an opportunity to maybe do a full team breakdown, when the drill's over or after practice or film. So what's your philosophy, especially at the middle school level, but really any level? How are you coaching players up as this is happening? There's, like I said, there's a lot of different ways to do it. I'm just curious to kind of get your perspective.
I think we'll do a little bit of everything that you mentioned, right? So we really don't want to stop the drill. We don't do this drill for very long, maybe 10 minutes at the most, because it's up and down and guys are going to get gas. So we'll do a little bit of both. So there's only myself and one other coach for about 24 players. And so usually there's one of us underneath each rim. So if you can picture it, we're probably talking to these guys down here as they're waiting to attack, and we might remind them of something based on a previous rep that they just done. So if they tried to go 1v2 and they get it blocked into the second row, we're going to remind them hey, you didn't get there last time. Maybe look to kick a little earlier or something like that. But we'll also do I like recaps at the end and questioning at the end. That's something I never was good at as a varsity coach, and I'm really, really trying to get better about kind of coaching through questions and asking questions after drills, and some basic things that they're doing right or wrong, or just how to get even a little bit better, throughout the season with a simple drill.
You brought up a great point too, which was not stopping the drill every second, kind of letting them play through some of the mistakes and then being able to coach them as you go through it. Yeah. So I love that. And I'm seeing another way to kind of advance this here, which I'm excited for. It looks like maybe some type of ball screen or dribble handoff action.
Yeah. So our team is pretty young. We have some, guys who just aren't very experienced. And so our basic thought is look, let's try to fast break and score easily. And if we can't, let's set a ball screen for whoever is handling it. And try to get an advantage that way. So if we don't have to use the ball screen, we don't want to use it, right? We want to attack the rim, get to the rim, get an easy bucket if we can. And so we really only want to set this ball screen if we have to. And so we waited to see if the defense had a guy stop and he had to back dribble at all, then we would sprint over and set that ball screen. So what we would do here is we would have kind of the same screener and screen defender. We would have those guys just stay for a bunch of reps so they could get used to ball screening for different players and also defending the ball screen. so they might go a few reps and we'll switch simple little ball screen to work into there and play some 2v2 if you need it. And it also teaches guys to like not be reliant on the screen. Our goal was always to get to the rim if you could. The third version, and to be honest, like this is something I think we're going to add. We didn't have a chance to add this in, but if you're a dribble drive coach, I think that you would like this. I know, Coach, you've run some dribble drive in the past, and same rules apply. If you can beat your defender and get to the rim, go ahead and do that. And then if you can't, then you just dump it off to player number 2 as he steps in and tries to score it. So if you're a dribble drive guy, seems like it would work pretty well, and it teaches your baseline guys how to slide and move in relationship to the dribble.
Yeah, and I love the way you add in the decision-making component. Like there already is, even in the 1-versus-1, how to finish, and you're trying to figure out how to finish at the rim. But I love the way you're adding in the different decisions, whether it's dribble drive or using a ball screen. There's just a lot of different options off of this. And I feel like coaches can really take the basic concept and kind of do what fits and what works for them. And I think, my wheels are kind of spinning now, even with this dribble drive example, because I'm just seeing a lot of opportunity in this one small-sided game.
Yeah. So one thing I will note is that what guys are going to try to do is turn this into a jump shooting drill. And you got to, as a coach, reemphasize it's not a jump shooting drill. You're not trying to kind of dribble drive, pull up, and shoot a contested 2 or even a contested 3. We want guys trying to get to the rim. And if they can't finish, we want them dishing. Like that's the point of the game, is to get an open layup for somebody. 2-on-1, 2-on-2, you should be able to get a layup out of it. We don't want guys pulling up in this drill. And you're going to get that, especially when you have some guys that maybe they're a good shooter, or maybe they're just slower than the guy who's defending them. And so they're like, man, my only prayer of getting a shot off here is to take a 3. And you really got to coach that out of kids to just attack, and find a way to finish 1v1, because 1v1 we're going to give them a big advantage, time wise. That player's got to wait a while before they take off. And then the advantage again on offense 2v2 is that you've drawn help and you're going to have a wide open teammate. But we just don't want guys settling for a contested dribble jumper, because that's a really low percentage shot at all levels, even if it's a 3. And even if it's like, I did this with some high school kids, and some of their best shooters love to just pull up, and they love to hit a shot in somebody's face and kind of just so that they can chirp a little bit. And we really just got to remind them that, like, no matter how good a shooter you are, a dribble into a shot with a hand up is, in your face might not be your best option on the break. And so you really got to emphasize that it's a finishing drill and not necessarily a shooting drill, because guys will try to turn it into like a ball handling, pull up jumper drill. And that's not what you want.
Some great points there. And just a question on like scoring and like points, with the SSG part. I know you mentioned one way is to sort of, if you score, you get to stay on offense. And obviously that's some motivation, adds to the competitiveness of the drill. Are there any other things you do from a points perspective?
There's a couple of things. The most obvious one that we had to put in first off is to prevent guys from fouling. So when we had it kind of a blue versus white thing, where all the defenders were on one team, all the offensive players were on one team for a certain amount of time, when the bucket started to matter, guys will foul. And our way of coaching that out of our players was to just count the basket. If you fouled, that was just a scored basket. It was the equivalent of that. And you stayed on defense with your team, and you're giving the opponent 2 points by fouling. So that got guys angry because they didn't agree with foul calls. You know how kids are. But it also got them to think about, how do I stop this score from happening, even if I'm not, quote unquote, in front of a guy in perfect defensive position. And said, look, you gotta figure it out sometimes, man. Maybe you run past them and kind of, or maybe you take a different angle, or maybe you trail them and try to back tip it or something, right? So anything but just whacking a guy's arms, and so we just made that an automatic 2 points, and that eliminated a lot of fouling on the break. And it also, showed guys that you can prevent some scoring by doing some pretty simple things. That was the one modification we made to it, just because we had to. 7th graders and 8th graders they're very competitive. They don't want to lose to their buddies. And we were having some guys start to foul, so we had to eliminate that pretty quickly.
No, that's great. And any drill, I think that's something that's pretty valuable in terms of, being competitive, but also playing within reason, because they could foul every time down, prevent a basket, and then, but what's that really teaching them? So I was
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
too, like in terms of just encouraging the layups, like point systems for layups. And like I said, the wheels are spinning a little bit. And I'm like, you can make it worth double points for a finish versus like a jump shot or a kick out might be worth less. And there's ways to kind of incorporate or emphasize different things that you want. And I'm
Yeah.
also thinking on the defensive end too, if they get a steal or if they, if you want them to encourage them to defend a certain way in that situation, beat the play to the
Yep.
spot. If they turn them, they might be able to earn a point because they slow up their momentum. So just thinking there's
Yep.
probably a lot of opportunities to reward players for points of emphasis that you want. And that's why I really love this drill.
Yeah, I think that, again, like any good SSG, it's customizable. You know what I mean? I think if you're a coach that wants to encourage steals and deflections and kind of more of that aggressive play, even on in a break situation, then you can add value to that. We didn't do any of that, but you're right. You can certainly magnify and score whatever you want to. Really, we just wanted to encourage guys to be better on ball defenders and not foul every time they were at a disadvantage. And so that's what we scored. But certainly you could add whatever you'd like to this to score.
Awesome. So this is great. Is there anything you want to share with coaches as we kind of, wrap this up? And I really appreciate, again, you sharing kind of your expertise. You share some great small-sided games, and then I think how to advance them and think about them in different ways. So I think it's been awesome today. But is there anything you want to share with coaches, any coaching points or just final advice as we leave today?
Yeah, I would say just make this real work for you. That was one thing that I always have a hard time with, is like, there's a lot of great drills out there, but you got to figure out how to make it work for you, whether it's the points that you emphasize or where you put that second player or the advantage that you give the offensive player. Do what works best for your team. Adjust it in a way that works best for your team. And a lot of that takes just some thinking on the fly. Certainly, it doesn't always look great. It looks pretty messy, but that's where learning happens. But my advice to any coach is to kind of make this, tweak this however you want to kind of make it work for yourself and make it work within the pillars of your team.
Well, that's great advice, Coach, and a good way to, wrap up this segment. I hope you'll join us again. You've shared some great small-sided games, and, maybe we can do this again if there's something else you want to share down the road.
I'm sure I can come up with another small-sided game to talk about. There's no shortage of those in my library.
Well, I appreciate that, and obviously your expertise and your perspective, and I just love how things that you share, you can think about from the college or even professional level all the way down to the youth level, and there's value in them. So, thank you for that, and thanks for all, sharing your expertise with everybody today.
Thanks, Coach. We'll talk to you soon.